Okay, we're going to do session 3. This is a fun session. It's called The Sum of Fear and Wonder. And I want to kind of open up this session again with a pretend encounter. This is not really something that happened. When I started to study the lioness, there was like a 2-year window, and I was invited to speak in South Africa. And the people, when I was invited to speak, they said, you know, you're going to have jet lag like you cannot believe. And we had it really bad because actually we were sitting right in front of Dave Chappelle, and he would not be quiet. So anyway, we were really tired when we arrived. And so they said, would you like to go on a safari? And we were like, absolutely. And so we went on a 3-day safari. They'd get you up at dawn, before dawn at 4 a.m. in the morning, and you'd go out and you'd see the lions and the cheetahs and all these different creatures. And if I'm seeing an animal on a regular basis, I'm kind of thinking that it knows me. And I also, because I had been studying the lioness, I kind of felt like we were friends. And so we were out on the 3rd day in one of those vehicles with no doors and no windows. I still don't understand why they put you out in a vehicle with no doors and no windows when they put you among things that have the ability to kill you. But anyway, there was no doors and windows. And we came up on this little mother with her 3 cubs. There was 2 girl cubs and 1 male cub. And I had seen her every day. And so she walked past me, just like right near me. I really think she wanted to make friends with me. And I put my hand out of the car, and I was just going to touch her backside. Her mouth was already gone. I was just going to kind of make a little contact with the backside. And I heard my husband say, absolutely not. Now, John is the only person that can say that to me. And so I lifted it back in, and I've had to imagine the conversation I've had with that lioness if John wouldn't have kept her from bonding with me. I believe she would have turned around and she would have said, Lisa! And I would have said, lioness, you are stunning. And she would have said, I know. And then she'd say, do you want to see what I can do? And I'd be like, bring it. And she'd release her claws and say, with these claws, I can take down an impala and feed my entire pride. And then she'd retract those claws and make her paw velvet and say, with this same paw, I nurture and tenderly raise up the young to be mighty. And then she'd say, do you want to see what else I can do? And I'd say, show me. And John would be in awe. He would be like, I had no idea this was going to happen. And she would bare her teeth, and everybody would lean back except for me. I would lean in. And she would bare her teeth, and she'd say, with these teeth, I hunt, I kill, and I defend. But with these same teeth, I move the young from one place to another without ever harming them. And then she would lay down to start her 21-hour nap. And she would say, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And I think you and I would agree that the lion and the lioness are the sum of fear and wonder. But I'm also afraid that we have forgotten, so are we. See, God said that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And that is your genesis. That is how you were begun. That is how your life was set into motion with fear and wonder. And David had a revelation of this. And this is what David said. He was like, how marvelous am I? I mean, David is talking about himself. He says, oh yes. I mean, like he's had it. Oh yes, you shaped me. First inside, then out. You formed me in my mother's womb. I thank you, high God. You're breathtaking. I mean, he's obviously thinking that God's breathtaking because David's thinking he's pretty breathtaking. Body and soul, I am marvelously made. Worship and adoration. What a creation. You know me inside out. You know every bone in my body. You know exactly how I was made, bit by bit, how I was sculpted from nothing into something. And then he says, oh, let me rise in the morning and live always with you. When we have a revelation that our beauty is not in our looks, but it is in our function. It is in what we are created to do and we are created to be, then we will change our perspective. How many of you in here have ever given birth to a child? I mean, were you not amazed by your body afterwards? Did you not go, whoa, I am fearfully and wonderfully made? Of course, in it, you're like, oh, what happened to her? But afterwards, when that baby came out, You have such a life-defining moment of feeling so powerful and capable of something you had no idea that you were capable of. When we dumb ourselves down to what we just look like, when we just are willing to look good instead of do good, when we have false humility, it is a slap in the face of God. Because God calls you fearfully and wonderfully made. And you and I are walking on the earth in a day when fear is ruling and everybody is wondering what is going on. And it's time we begin to remember the genesis of our creation and begin to manifest some fearsome God wonder on the face of the earth. So we need to understand that the lioness gets that. And we often say, well, yeah, that's her, but she's just an animal. You are created in the image of God. And if you undermine who you are, you undermine who he is in your life. You know, the lioness, her attraction is undeniable because her power is unquestionable. And we need to understand that our God is altogether lovely, and his attractiveness to this world should be undeniable, and his power and his authority should be above question. And so we need to be people that begin to exemplify that in our lives. And so we're going to have to actually probably have a little bit of an assessment to find out what we really look like. You know, I had kind of a horrible delusion for about 3 days. I was down in Australia preaching at an amazing conference called Beautiful Woman, and it was Planet Shakers, and then I did Sunday mornings. And I think once they fly you down there, they're like, hey, we spent so much to get you down here, you will speak 10 times. And so I think I was like constantly, and it was like a whirlwind, and I was like blowing and going and, you know, sleep deprived and jet lag, and, you know, kids are at home and you're trying to talk to people and, you know, they're going to bed when you're getting up and everything's crazy. And at the end of all of it, the pastor's wife, Sam Evans, said, does everybody come to my house? We gather around the fireplace. We're all eating like bruschetta and girl food and talking. And I feel like I was very vulnerable. I feel like I was very vulnerable in that moment. And one of the Australian women came up to me and she said, you know what? I've been watching you this whole time and I figured out who it is that you remind me of. And I'm thinking to myself, please don't say this American Idol judge, please don't say this. You know, so I was like thinking, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. But she didn't say that. She said, you remind me of the original Sarah Connor. And I'm like, I didn't see that movie. Because when my kids were little, watching Terminator was like inviting them to sleep in my bed for 3 years. There was no way we were watching that movie about, you know, an assassin trying to kill the kids and the mom trying to protect. You know, there was no way. There was no way. But I thought she was blonde. And so I said, wasn't she blonde? And so he said, oh, no, it's not her hair. It's her buffness. Okay, somebody called a 50-year-old woman buff. Now all of a sudden, I want to look like Sarah Connor. I don't even know what she looks like. I fly home. I grab Alec. I'm like, Alec, you need to find Sarah Connor online because people are saying I look like her. He was like, Mom, you don't. I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. I think I do. And so he finds this picture of Sarah, and she's got little round sunglasses on, and she's got an AK-47 in her hands, and she's got like a tank top on, and she's like buff, and there's like veins popping out of her arms. And I'm like, oh yeah, I see that. No. That's not what I look like. But I thought I looked like that in that moment. And then he finds this little 80s montage of her, and she's like in some kind of like sanitarium or something. And she's taken her twin bed and she's flipped it up against the wall. And she's doing pull-ups on the underside of her bed. And why is Sarah doing pull-up on the underside of her bed? Because she knows that she won't always be captive. And she is gaining strength for that season when she is released. Now I spiritually feel connected with Sarah. She's going to be released and she's going to rescue her son. Now, I could have stopped my delusion if I had asked myself just one question. Lisa, have you ever done a pull-up? But no, I have never done a pull-up. But I didn't ask myself that question. I did something I had never done before. I picked up the phone and I called Gold's Gym. And I asked for the trainer that shaves his head by name. I said, Robert, this is Lisa Bevere. He's like, who? I'm like, okay, I know you don't know who I am, but my boys are buff. And I've decided their buffness actually probably comes from me. And I need to come in and I want to train with you. And he said to me, well, first we're going to have to do an assessment. And I should have paused when he said assessment, but I didn't. I just kept going with it because I was jet lagged and I was crazy in that moment. And so I hung up the phone. I called my boys. I need some clean, like pump up music. And so Alex made me a clean mix of boom, boom, pow. And I got in the car and I'm driving with my boys who are going to the gym and I'm a complete stranger there. And I walk in, I see Robert. Well, it was quite possibly one of the worst days of my life. I mean, Robert took me from one station to the other, and I failed every aspect of the assessment. There was not one area that was strong. I thought that I was going to be strong on lifting weights, but then I found out I was lifting weights wrong. And then I started making excuses like, well, but my knee is bothering me, my left knee is bothering me, my left shoulder is bothering me. You know, I went from Sarah to like Weiner, and I'm like, I know this is bothering me. And he's like, why do you think it's bothering me? I'm like, I don't know. He said, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I travel. Well, what do you do when you travel? I pull all my luggage only on my left side of my body. Okay, you're torquing yourself, dragging your luggage. Perhaps if you just switched it to the right, you wouldn't have a sore shoulder and knee. So, it was just horrible. And then he explained to me that I was something called skinny fat. Hey, what is that? That is just so wrong. He actually started to point out women that were quite a bit larger than me and explained to me that I was fatter than them. I'm like, Robert, shut up right now. I do not want to hear this. I am a busy person. I am not lazy. And he said, no, you're busy, but you don't bear any weight. And because you don't bear weight, you don't build muscle. And he said, you burn it. And he said, in all of your busyness, you're burning your muscle instead of building it. And I left the gym that day completely deflated, but also wondering how much of the church is skinny fat. We're busy, but we're not building any strength. Because at the end of the day, it's not how much we weigh. It's what we're made of. It's what we have the capacity to bear, what we can hold, what we can push up against, what we can lift and hold back. God is not looking for a bunch of women who are skinny and weak. He's looking for some women who are strong and free. And so I decided I didn't like it, but that I wanted to be strong and not just look good in my clothes. And we need to decide as women that we want to be strong more than we want to just give the appearance of strength. Amen. Micah 4:13 says, on your feet, daughter of Zion, be threshed of chaff, be refined of dross. I am remaking you into a people invincible. Amen. I love that. God is saying, find your feet, deal with your issues, because I'm remaking you into a people invincible. I'm afraid too many people are content to be invisible. They want to hide and then they want to escape. But God is saying, I'm sorry, there's going to be an invincible revelation of my people before there is an escape. I don't know when was the last time you felt invincible, but it wasn't probably when everything was going good for you. It was probably when you came out of a season of incredible hardship and heartache and pain and woke up one morning and realized that you were still going, and you realized that the enemy had brought his worst and done his worst, and you still found your feet. That's what it feels like to be invincible. And we need to talk about what that process looks like for us as a church, because Micah 4, verses 10 through 12, which are the verses ahead, talk about how God uses hardship in our life to remake us invincible. It says, God will give you new life again. He will redeem you from your enemies. But for right now. Now I'm like, wait, redeem me right now. What do you mean, but for right now?